Travis Wayne Goodsell. Much of the complaints of Mormons is the warfare in the Book of Mormon. They don't understand, why is there so much bloodshed? That doesn't seem faith promoting. You know, and it's not talking about Jesus and love and peace. The Book of Mormon is a warning of the dangers of allowing secret combinations of murder, theft, and sexual violence, and the hatred that dwells in the heart of man when it's an organized crime. And so James Bond's No Time to Die has finally been released. I not too long ago used a thumbnail altered for my video content, in which there was a Spectre meeting, and James Bond infiltrated it. And so wouldn't it be fascinating if somehow Barbara Broccoli incorporated in this version a scene where, I don't know, maybe James Bond meets with Felix. I see that there's a scene where they're in some kind of a bar, and Bond would talk about intelligence information from the Book of Mormon, for example. Wouldn't that be fun? It's also curious that it's called nanobot, genetically altered nanobots, but it appears like a virus that's able to be passed on to other people, so that people become the weapons for the designers and the ones who are in charge of spreading this weaponized virus. And it was supposed to be released in November 2019, which is very disturbing when you put it in the historical context. If it hadn't have been for the dispute that caused the one guy to quit and thus delayed it into 2020, which got delayed further. I don't know if people realize that as I do, but the Book of Mormon specifically talks about the threat to America specifically, but it's a worldwide threat. Talks about the great and abominable church that eventually joins forces with the secret band of Gadianton, the secret combination. And it is them, with their conspiratorial collusion, that destroys the Nephites. And then there's others, you know, the Jaredites. They get destroyed because of secret combinations in their kingdom. And so what is it about war that we can recognize? The news is talking a lot about, are we at civil war? Are we at war with Russia and China? You know, what would happen if we were at war? What would it look like? We're already in war. And if you understood how war is carried out, you would know that we're already at war. We are already overthrown as a government. We are fascist. We have been conquered, and we've got these wars with other fascist countries for supremacy. In The Art of War, Sun Tzu goes over quotes from historical generals, military leaders, emperors who had things to say on war. And the major theme is that to be a good warrior, you never go to war. You conquer your enemy by having your enemy conquer themselves. That saves your men. That saves your people. And it prevents you from being conquered. And so, in our modern technology, everything is run by computers. Everything is run by electricity, by computers. And so, in warfare, you want to have your enemies' communications cut off and their power cut off. No access to any electronic devices for communication purposes. You'll often see governments, even in America, do sanctions on other countries that are naughty. This is a punishment on the people, not on the government leaders of the punished country. Because sanctions are withholding of goods and services to that nation. Funds also. And so the leaders never suffer. The idea behind sanctioning is that you get the people to be upset that their quality of life is jeopardized, is lessened. And then they blame their leaders and then overthrow of government. Unfortunately, it no longer works as a tactic anymore because the leaders being sanctioned put out the propaganda that they're being attacked by the sanctioning countries. And so, what are other techniques? Well, there's misinformation and disinformation campaigns. And so you utilize the computer technology to spread misinformation and disinformation. Social media becomes the perfect weapon to spread misinformation and disinformation. Algorithms used by the social media companies are able to censor or favor. And so my channel, for example, gets censored by YouTube. I've caught them in the act. I am not being treated equally, and I'm targeted for being censored. This is warfare that is carried out through computer systems, through the internet, through electricity. And so, what was the major complaint of the 2016 presidential election? That Russia interfered and brainwashed Americans into believing that it's better to be Russian than vote Democrat. A certain presidential candidate got up at the press pulpit and said, Russia, if you're listening, I hope you can find the Hillary Clinton emails. And sure enough, later that day, oh, they found them. What do you know? I guess they were listening. And so there are lots of attacks that are going on right before our eyes, but for some reason we don't recognize them as warfare tactics. You don't realize that a cyber attack on a hospital or on businesses, because Kronos was hacked by Russia last week. It's a church Mormon program. Don Glenn is the temple financer, or temple financial guy. And so paychecks are going to be hurt for, I don't know, was the pay period last week or this week? You know, and it may be for a little while longer, who knows? And so other methods of paying people are going to have to be utilized until the ransom is paid, and then the FBI does a back trace to find out the source of the ransom, and blah blah blah. I can't remember the name. I watched a movie the other day where they talk about when someone is shooting at you, you know their intention. And this is correct for warfare. When someone's shooting at you or attacking you in any form or way, whether it be through a propaganda campaign to misinform and disinform us, or through cyber attacks, or physical shooting, you know they're at war. They've declared war. You know, the shot heard round the world. The start of the revolution. Yeah. The first person to draw blood or to attack has declared war. See, for Russia to put all their soldiers at the border of Ukraine, that's not warfare. That hasn't been declared yet. When he invaded Crimea, yeah, that was warfare. He got away with it. But just to puff up your chest by showing your muscle at the border, that's not a declaration of war. But cyber attacking us is a declaration of war. And so you can see what Putin is doing. He's puffing up his chest for the physical stuff, but for the cyber technology, which is a brand new thing for warfare, he's already declared war against America. These cyber terrorists, they cannot act unless Putin allows them to. If they go rogue, they're going to mess up Putin's plans, unless that's what he wants. But again, he allows them to do it. He gives the orders. And so we are already at war. And you can see with his misinformation, disinformation campaign using social media, he has turned Americans against each other. We are in a civil war. The news keeps talking about whether we're in it or not. We are. Because again, what happened on January 6th was an act of war. The physical war part. Just because they didn't follow through to hang Mike Pence doesn't mean that, oh, it wasn't really warfare. It wasn't really a battle. Just because you suck at it doesn't mean you aren't declaring war. See, that wasn't a puffing up of the chest at the borders. That was an actual invasion of our government. That was a full-on assault. And the fact that our government cannot prosecute them effectively and efficiently as the top people responsible can't be locked up. See, the generals and the officers are not getting locked up. The soldiers on the ground are partially getting locked up. Not everybody has been arrested. There were Mormons involved in this. So much for the Book of Mormon with Captain Moroni and the title of Liberty going back to the Capitol to rescue the Nephites from the kingmen who sought to overthrow the Mosaic Constitution, to reestablish a monarchy. Sounds very familiar with something that's going on right now. And so we are divided as a nation. We are arguing and fighting with each other. Cops are shooting unarmed black men in the back. People are getting falsely arrested. People are being denied basic essentials. People are being refused assistance. And there's more suffering to come. There's apparently Joe Manchin's refusing to agree to the Build Back Better bill, which, we still had to get 10 Republicans, but now it's 11, and so the poor are going to suffer more because of this. We are taking heavy casualties, and yes, there is a virus going around still, isn't there? And how is it spread? How is it weaponized? Yeah, those who get infected with it. They're the ones going around infecting others. That's why it's called a pandemic. This is the worst pandemic ever. This is the worst cause of death in American history. And American citizens are brainwashed into being weaponized to go around, spread the virus, to murder other Americans. As they claim freedom, they declare that the whole thing is a hoax. They declare that, it's their agency to go around and murder people. Late night, last year, I exposed the stupidity of Utahns. There was a video clip that the late night hosts all caught about grandma, talking about how this is all government conspiracy. Everybody's wearing the MAGA hats. Everybody's going around saying patriotism as they go and murder their fellow Americans. And they don't see it as being brainwashed. They talk about, oh, this scarecrow enemy who's going to brainwash us with re-education in the Walmart martial law concentration camps. They use those at the southern border to lock up those seeking refuge. And then got the tent camps built. We've already been at war. They're already re-educating you. They're already causing suffering with your essential needs. They've already weaponized you against each other. So Black Lives Matter, yeah, it became warfare. Cops against those who don't want cops to abuse them. And then you had infiltrators to destroy the Black Lives Matter movement, who would go around destroying property. And so you get President Nelson calling the Black Lives Matter movement an act of terrorism. Governor Herbert, likewise, called the Black Lives Matter protesters domestic terrorists and fully weaponized the police force and military stuff. That does not convince anybody that you're trying to restore peace and order. It only establishes we're already in fascism. That we're already in authoritarianism. We're already in a dictatorship. We're already in a monarchy. And so why do people still think that we're not yet in war, whether civil or world? Why do people believe that there's still hope? That's also part of the warfare. And that one was exposed in World War II's Nazi Germany. Survivors explained how they survived. They kept hope alive in order to survive. And so bad people heard that and said, oh, okay, so we can torture and abuse people just enough and dangle out hope for them, and they'll continue to be functional as we continue the torture. So they learned how to be even worse inhumane torturers from World War II. That was not the lesson they were supposed to learn. And so, as the cost of living goes up, You have to pay more money for food, for example. And you complain about the rising cost of food. The news tries to tell you, well, it's because of the coronavirus. You know, they're having supply problems and production problems and transportation problems, and it's creating a shortage, and thus has the rise of the prices. But what they're not telling you is that you're already in slavery. When you work for someone else, you're their slave. You're not a partner. You don't get an equal share of the profits. You're their slave. And they purposely give you less than a living wage, as you, working for them, give them their lifestyle that they don't have to work for. Just like the plantations here in America. And so what is the major argument when you're unemployed? You are the one to blame. You're the bum. Get a job, they say. And when you get a job flipping burgers for minimum wage, which is way far less than the living wage, they'd say, well, get a better job. Again, the people have been brainwashed to be weaponized against other Americans, unaware that we are at war, both civil and world, and that we are already fascist. Roe v. Wade, it's about to be overturned. There was a slight break in it, but it's coming back. Like I've told you before, the issue is not about pro-life versus pro-choice. That's the misinformation, disinformation campaign to brainwash you, to divert and distract from the real cause. That women are victims of sexual assault. And nobody cares about the life of the woman. As even the Democrats. It's all about a woman choosing whether to keep the rape baby or not. It's not about, hey, rapists need to pay. Democrats are communist. It's a socialist republic. Party system of governing. But conservatives are fascist. It's that dichotomous debate that we've had since World War II and even before. It's the false dichotomy argument. It's a fallacy. It's a popular one that's been used in the art of war. Divide and conquer. So you get the masses to be one or the other. You're either for us or you're against us. And the false dichotomy is that there are other options. You know, like a constitutional republic. Heaven forbid we should actually adhere to the Constitution. And so, even in the church you see this. As the prophets incite Mormons to violence, simply by using the code words, the trigger words: Jesus, love, family, repentance. And Mormons hear, yeah, we need to force other people to obey, take away their agency, and we need to name call them anti-Mormon. They can't tell us that church history isn't real, that we've been deceived. In the world? And then, yeah, I literally understand what it's like to be Ether and Moroni, who both witnessed the entire destruction of their people. I see America gone. You guys don't see that it's gone, because it still runs, right? Still have a president. But all these conflicts are the distraction away from reality. That America has been conquered. That it's now fascist. And all these distractions are just to give you hope that we can pull through, that we can be strong as a nation. Mormons, however, don't see it that way, do they? They want America to destroy itself so that Mormon Jesus can come down and destroy the wicked and take over the government. And that's where the incitement to violence comes in. Mormons think they've got to help cause the violence, cause the crime, cause the suffering. Just like Chad Daybell and Laurie Vallow in the extreme case. And Brian David Mitchell in another extreme case. They all believe in the church's apocalyptic view, and that they needed to help bring it about. With Brian David Mitchell, it was, yeah, I need to get multiple wives to populate the human race after the whole America and the world are destroyed, along with the church. But with Chad and Laurie Vallow, they thought zombies were the way to justify murdering children. So, understand the tactics of war, and you will realize how dire our situation is. As you will realize we have no hope. That there are no righteous, that we are doomed. So, I'm preparing to watch the Die Hard quadrilogy. It's actually a quintilogy. 5 movies, isn't it? Number 4 is the fire sale. So, for Christmas, the true Christmas tradition, you do know that's why the debate keeps coming up each year is so that we will then watch it as a yearly tradition for Christmas. And at least talk about it. You fell for it. Samantha Bee, her Full Frontal show on YouTube. She has a segment of reenacting the Christmas story or whatever. She's reading the story to kids. Listen to the end. Get her, kids, get her!